Some say that Stephen King's It made kids afraid of clowns, but they were terrifying people long before Pennywise came along. Here are some of the scariest clowns in pop culture. The amazing thing about Terrifier's Art the Clown is that while some parts of his personality are reminiscent of Pennywise, his delight in the deaths of his victims, for instance, he takes that glee and turns it up even further, adding notes of sadism that few horror characters can touch. Art is so twisted that even Pennywise might actually blanch at some of his antics. Where Art came from is a sticky question. He appears to be the immortal form of a serial killer who long ago killed the little pale girl, but Terrifier 4 promises to reveal his actual origin story. For now, Art continues to look for vessels for the little pale girl so the pair can continue their killing spree together. As frightening as Pennywise is, at least he doesn't have a sidekick. This and so many more things make Art so much creepier than your average clown.
You're frightening her. Can't you see that?
Clown in a Cornfield's Frendo the Clown is creepier than Pennywise for several reasons, but one big one is that he's not just a single character terrorizing the local teenagers. There are many Frendos haunting Kettle Springs. Rather than a lone killer, Frendo is essentially a presence whose work is done by many clowns wearing sinister masks and sporting all kinds of weapons, from crossbows to swords to chainsaws. Silent and wearing plastic smiles, their sheer number makes them an unstoppable force of terror. Their leader harbors a secret that ultimately rocks the foundation of everything our protagonists know about life. It's clear that their appearance relates to the destruction of the Baypem corn syrup factory, which sported Frendo as a company mascot and was once the town's lifeblood. While the many Frendos turn out to have a singular motive, their very silent machinations make them incredibly creepy. Perhaps no clown ever created is as terrifying as the creature at the center of Clown, an ancient demon that devours children. Clown takes over anyone who puts on the cursed clown costume, which is made from Clown's own skin and hair. Ew. In the film, this happens to Kent, a regular dad who's just trying to provide last-minute entertainment at his son's birthday party. Once he puts on the suit, he begins transforming into an inhuman, kid-chomping monster. At first, the horror of Clown comes from Kent's loss of control as the demon takes over. But by the end of the film, there's no saving him, and the horror comes from the rampaging monster clown that he's become. You can be sure of one thing: this is the scariest clown in movie history, and there's never been a better advertisement for Chuck E. Cheese.
Gross, somebody peed in here.
Captain Spaulding, one of the anti-heroes of creator Rob Zombie's House of 1000 Corpses and the Devil's Rejects, may not be the most chaotic or even the most evil clown on this list. Still, while he first appears as little more than a makeup-covered weirdo who owns a gas station, by the second film, he's right in the middle of all the violence. Captain Spaulding lives in a particularly terrifying world, one in which murder and most other crimes are treated casually. It's a world in which police officers are just as immoral and bloodthirsty as the criminals they're after, and the very concept of morality is a quickly dismissed joke.
I don't like chicken, and I hate clowns!
In other words, it's a world that looks all too much like our own, a fact that only makes Spaulding and the other agents of chaos that surround him all the more terrifying. Few clowns have ever been as visually frightening as Twisty, the deranged killer featured in Freak Show, the fourth season of American Horror Story. Creator Ryan Murphy has even said that members of the crew would leave during Twisty's scenes because he was just so frightening. Once a circus clown who loved to entertain children, Twisty's career was ruined by false rumors of pedophilia. He failed at committing suicide with a shotgun, but succeeded in blowing off his lower jaw. Thus, the half mask with a terrifying smile. What's underneath it is even more horrific, leaving reality entirely behind. Twisty begins kidnapping children in a supposed effort to save them from their oppressive parents. He's convinced children still love him and long to be entertained by his antics, even as every child who sees him screams and runs away. Maybe that horrifying mask was a bad choice. 1982's Poltergeist is one of the all-time greatest haunted house movies, and like most standard haunted houses, a lot of the horror early in the film comes from inanimate objects moving on their own. So when young Robbie notices late at night that a clown doll that was sitting in a chair by his bed has suddenly disappeared, that's already scary. And then things get really bad. The 2015 Poltergeist remake overdoes its attempt to one-up this scene, with multiple clown dolls in a much darker room, but nothing in that film measures up to the scares of the original. Doomhead from Rob Zombie's 31 might be one of the musician and movie maker's darkest creations. A murderous clown with a moral code that would make Captain Spaulding blush, he kills for the sheer joy of it. He falls into the category of a Joaquin Phoenix Joker-style figure, one whose murderous actions and clowning go hand in hand. In short, he's a truly sadistic creature.
I'm not crazy, I'm in control.
Doomhead is just one savagely cruel member of the Heads, a whole cadre of evil harlequins enlisted to kill a group of carnies who find themselves forced to play the survival game 31 by an organization of elderly aristocrat-like figures. Doomhead does most of the actual murdering for his clan, which represents the sickness of the outside world. He ultimately becomes a final boss in the film, and when audiences last see him, he's headed into a showdown with the game's last survivor, a fight that takes place after the movie's ending, so the audience never learns if the unhinged clown wins or loses his final confrontation. He's a force of pure chaos and Batman's greatest enemy. The Joker has had various origin stories over the years, and they tend to involve falling into a vat of chemicals or trying to escape Batman. But who he was before that is up in the air. In his original 1951 origin, he was already a villain known as the Red Hood. 1988's The Killing Joke graphic novel elaborated on this story, making him an aspiring comedian who had only turned to crime to support his pregnant wife, who ends up being killed anyhow. But even within that book, this sympathetic backstory is called into question, with the Joker saying that he prefers his past to be multiple choice. For every new Joker, there's a new origin story. The lack of a clear identity is what the Joker is all about. He's dedicated to the idea that the world makes no sense and will murder, maim, and mutilate anyone who crosses his path to illustrate that there are no reasons. He's not just a mad clown, he's a clown that embodies madness. Few clowns are actually from hell, but the Violator is a straight-up demon. He's a main antagonist in Todd McFarlane's Spawn comics, as well as the 1997 Spawn movie.
Every time somebody farts, a demon catches her wings. Twins.
His entire purpose is to mess with Spawn, who was given his powers by the forces of hell. Since those powers will eventually run out and force Spawn's return to hell for all eternity, the role of Violator is not just to tempt and corrupt Spawn into doing evil. It's to manipulate him into using his powers recklessly. Violator isn't just a murderous clown. He's here to shepherd a soul toward eternal damnation, and he does it with a grin. Needles Kane, better known to gamers as Sweet Tooth, is a serial killer clown who drives a well-armed ice cream truck in an apocalyptic demolition derby. He's been driving that terrible truck since the first Twisted Metal game in 1995, and he's only gotten creepier since. Over the course of the original Twisted Metal series, he evolved from a standard killer clown with green hair to a flaming, cursed monster who's forced to carry the fires of hell around with him. Sure, the fires of hell are pretty scary, but the 2012 Twisted Metal reboot made the clown even creepier, making him a guy who tries to kill his entire family after going insane with boredom. Sweet Tooth spends years trying to find his daughter, who escaped the killing spree, so he can finish what he started. It's just video game fun that causes other people to get killed along the way.